Hi, I'm Trey and welcome to one of my colouring videos. In this video I'm going to be reviewing and testing the Marco Chroma pencil set. I have the 100 and I'll be interested to see how different they are from the Marco Refine because the colours kind of overlap. I'll be also doing a demonstration in a book called The Vintage Classic Colouring Pages by Tatiana, Bogena, Stolova. It's one of my favourite books, to see how the pencils work with that paper. Now with all my pencils, I take them out of the original box and I put them in a case. Now these came in a cardboard box. It also came all the way from the Ukraine. And though it was well packaged, so hopefully I've got no breakages when I come to use them. I think they're advertised as a softer core than the Marco Refine, so I'm kind of open for that because I really do like those pencils, but they haven't quite got enough pigment for me. So I transferred them into this lovely case. Like I said, I have the 100 set. I'll just show you one of the pencils. It's in a blue bottle. It has Marco Chroma on the side. It's got a number, and that's how I recognise some of the numbers, because they overlap into the same numbers in the Marco Refine. There isn't a name on these. However, I did find somebody who had named the Marco Refine, so I actually put those onto my swatch list. Now I've done a swatch, as I always do with all my pencils, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to find pencil colours easier, because some of the barrels on these, on the end, the colour does not always match the core, so I tend to always use a swatch. Now these are really nice colours. There's lots of options. In fact, it's a shame really, I would have liked a bigger set of these, but the 100 does quite well. Now the extras I've seen in this set, there's quite a few more skin colours which I kind of like. There's more browns and there's more greens and the odd extra purple, so there's a nice selection in here. So I'm going to test these on slightly textured paper and see how they blend as well with baby oil and Zest It. Now I'm testing these pencils and how they blend using the Crawford & Black Artist Sketchbook. A slight texture to it, and I've already done some of the layers just to save a bit of time, because it's pretty much the same as what I normally do. So I've done used 4 colours in this one, a pale yellow, a lilac, a medium purple and a very dark purple, more like a grape. Really nice colours those, and I've used these colours because I'm going to be using these colours on a project and I'm doing a demonstration for, and I like to use yellow for the highlights. Now there is 6 layers down of each of those colours. Now when I started putting these down, I noticed very quickly, because I've been using Marco Refine for several years now, they feel very much the same. They don't feel any softer, and they go down on the paper very much the same. So I think they're going to react the same to the blending. So I put down an extra layer. That's why there's 6 layers down on this. So I'm going to try the Zest It first. And the Zest It, I have mine in a little tub, plastic tub with a sponge, and I put the solution in. It's a solution for blending coloured pencils. Got a lovely scent to it, citrus. And I just dab a cotton bud into the sponge, take off the excess, and now I'm going to be moving across from the yellow first and into the purples, just using it lightly. Now I zoomed in a little bit more there so you can see it, and the same thing that I normally get, a reaction I normally get with the refined pencils is this. There's not enough pigment going down onto the paper to easily use solutions, and I've found this with the other pencils, so I'm not sure if these are advertised as being better quality than the refined, but I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing a better quality. However, they're still nice pencils because I really like my refined pencils. So now I'm going to try the baby oil. I have a little bit in a cup. Use me cotton bud, just put it a little bit on the end, take off the excess, and starting from the light again, going towards the dark. Right, that looks even patchier. So when it comes to blending solutions, and I mean I've got 6 layers down on these, and so it should be a bit better. I normally only put 5 layers down. They're quite patchy. There just isn't the pigment in these to be able to coat with the solutions very well. But what I'm going to do now is put another layer down, just one on each side, because I find quite often once I put solution down I can get another layer down, and it reacts quite well. So throughout this I've only used light pressure. So I will go across now and do all those colours again. So it's the light yellow that I used, lilac. I also overlap the colours as well. Purple. And grape, I will call that darker purple. Now the pigment for the zest I think looks brighter with that next layer. So let's see what happens with the baby oil. Yellow, starting again. I'm just repeating what I did for the top one. Not really. I think it's reacting to the oil and it didn't go down very well, I found, for that one. But I could still get another layer down. The zest went down a bit better. Now the book I'm going to be using is the Vintage Classic Colouring Pages. This is volume 1 by Tatiana, Bogena, Stolova. I really do like this book. I've got volume 3 and 4 as well. I really do like the designs. Now this is printed on Amazon paper with the black background. I believe the white background is a slightly different texture. And I have both those kind of books, so it does feel slightly different texture. Now I'm going to be doing this mushroom, and I'll zoom a little bit there so that you get a close-up. Now I'm using those colours I used before for the test, and that is the 554 yellow, the 574 which is like a lilac, the 584 which is a purple, and the 597 which I think looks like a grape. I'm going to do the highlights first, and this artwork has got some grayscale line work in it, and one of the reasons I want to use these pencils to see how they cope with that. Now the highlights I'm going to be putting the yellow in is all the spaces that has no line detail in it. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm just going to be using light pressure throughout this, because I'm hoping to get a few layers down. Now this paper is not as textured as what I did the test on, so I'm not expecting to get a lot of layers down on this. Now that's the yellow down. Now I'm going to be using the lilac, and I'm going to cover the rest of the mushroom in this base layered lilac colour, including going into parts of the highlights, because I feel that they would be slightly darker because of the shape and where the highlights are. Again, I'm using light pressure. I don't expect at this point to see much coverage on the paper, especially over these lined shaded areas. Now I'm going to use my medium colouring for this demonstration, the purple. I'm going to put this purple into the darkest areas. Now that will be, especially inside here, inside the mushroom, that will be darker. I'll leave some of the highlighted for the lilac and just darkening around those areas. The edge of the top of the mushroom will be the darkest, and the same on the stem, the darkest areas. So I won't be covering all of the lilac. Again, I'm using light pressure. Now I'm going to use my lilac again and go over what I've just put down and darken in the lilac sections. And I'm noticing this, and I'm hoping it's coming up on the camera, that the pencils, because of the lack of pigment, they are struggling with this design. Especially in the darker sections, but we'll see how many layers I can actually get down. Now I'm going to use the darkest purple, which is kind of a grape tone of purple. I'm going to go in just in the darkest areas and round the edges of those. I'm trying to make an interesting gradient effect. And I'm hoping that this colour, because it's the darkest I'm using, will cover up better the darker shading with the line art. Still only using light pressure though. I want to try and get more layers down. Now I'm using the yellow, I'm going over the yellow areas, the highlighted areas, and see how it looks with a couple of layers of each of those colours. Just see how the effect is coming along. I think it probably need adapted a little bit as I put the layers down, but basically I'm quite pleased with where I've put my colours initially. Now there's a couple of lilac layers down, there's a couple of yellow down, and there's one of each of the dark colours. This needs more layers. How am I feeling it's going down so far on this paper? Not as well as it did with the texture paper, I must be honest. I'm struggling a little bit with this. However, I'm going to put more layers down off camera and then come back to this and see how it's looking. Now I've got 6 layers of each of those colours down. And now I'm going to try and do a blend with Zest It. I'll do the yellow first. Just put enough on a cotton bud. Now, that black you see in there is the black from the back. Now I had a feeling this might happen because I can't get enough pigment down with these pencils. However, as always, it's best if something goes wrong, you know, on camera and people can see some of the problems you might have. So that's with the yellow. You know, I can see the black background is coming through. Now I'm going to try the purple sections. It's working a bit better because it's darker. But in the lighter lilac areas I can see the black background is showing through. Now it does smooth it out a bit more, and of course with using the Zest It I find I can get more pencil down, so I'm going to try and do another layer. Now I've used more pigmented pencils on this book and I haven't had the effect of the black background coming through. So part of the problem is there's not enough pigment in these pencils to cope with this book. However, you could get round that by not blending with solution. And however, then you struggle to get more layers down. So it all depends what you like to do when it comes to blending. You could try a blending pencil, which I sometimes use, but that only works if you've got a lot more layers down, at least I find that. So I'm not quite sure for this. I mean, if you didn't have a black background, I think it would have been fine. personally I would have got away with that. Now I'm going to put another layer of the lilac down. I'm still using light pressure. I'm going to use the medium purple now and start going into the darker areas. Let's deepen that in. Now I use my Marco Refine pencils as base layers just to get some pencil down to save my more expensive pencils, and because the more expensive pencils go on top of the Marco really well, and so they're a good base pencil set. Now that's great because the 72 set of Marco Refine generally are quite cheaply priced, and I think for a 72 set of those about £15. I've never paid more than that. Now these pencils are, for me, an extension of those, as in you get all the 72 colours that you get in the Marco Refine, and there's some extra colours. So for for base layers, again, they probably work really well, and that would be grand, and you get some extra colours. However, they are twice as much in cost as the Marco Refine 72 set. So for me, they're not cost effective because I paid £35 for this 100 set. Sorry, I'm now using the grape and going into the edges of the darker parts. So yeah, sorry, I paid £35 for the 100 set, but that's twice as much as I would pay for the 72 Marco Refine, and so for me that wasn't cost effective. For a budget pencil, I mean, I've got 120 set of budget pencils that work better than these, more pigment, for less than £30. So value wise, I don't think they're as good a value as other sets. On their own, if you don't have the Marco Refine, I think they're fine. I think these are a nice introduction to the Marco range. Just going to go over again with the lilac. Now this layer has gone down easier because of the reaction to the zest, which is good, and it's covered up some of the dark, of the black at the back of the paper that's come through. I do think that these would make a very good base layer. However, I already have the Refine, so I wouldn't have actually got these pencils if I realised they were just a doubling up of those pencils. Now I'm going to try and get more layers down off camera. I don't really need to show that. This is just to give an idea of how these pencils work. With the textured paper, I think they go down better. with this smoother Amazon creative print paper, the struggling, and the black shows through when I actually did a blend with solution. So that did work very well. If it was just white on the back, I think it would have worked better. Would I say these are a nice set of pencils? Yes, they are. And I like my Marco Refine. I mean, I've had those for years, and I really like using them as base layers. So I do think they're a nice pencil. I think they're just a little bit overpriced for what you get, because you only get 24 extra colours and it's double the price of the Refine. So, you know, that's my thoughts on it. So I hope anybody's watched this has found this useful. So I'll say bye for now, and I'll come back in the near future with a different colour pencil review.